Wong is the owner of a third-generation family farm first established in 1939. Brian is the second youngest of 40 grandchildren and is the one who wanted to stay around, do the hard work, and preserve the family legacy. Today, BKW Farms in Marana, Arizona employs organic farming methods, and they grow a heritage variety of wheat. BKW Farms is a supplier of grains to Arizona breweries, different types of wheat to Arizona bakeries, and locally grown mushrooms. In a state where water is a day-to-day issue, Brian has learned how to manage this precious resource with the goal of sustainability. This was a compelling podcast due to the new focus on the quality of food and health. Enjoy. How you doing, Russell?
I'm good. I'm really good.
Weather's nice. It's starting to get a little bit warmer, and I know you're a much bigger fan of warm than you are cold.
Yeah, it's been a mild winter, so I really can't complain. Yeah, I don't like the cold. That's the bottom line.
I know 2-3 weeks ago you were up actually snowshoeing someplace. That was your first experience doing that, and I don't think you want to repeat it right away.
No, it was beautiful. It was up outside Cody, and we snowshoed to the top of the ski lift. And I thought it was going to be really cold, but as it works out, I'm in bad enough shape that I got pretty warm walking up that hill. So I actually opened up my jacket, which was only layer number 5.
Yeah. Well, I'm terrified of heights, so the only way I'm getting to the top of a ski lift is to walk there. So
well, that's how I did it.
That's the only way I would get there. So. We've got a gentleman that came in today, him and his bride, and this is going to be interesting because he's going to talk about something that we all have to eventually do at one point in time or another during every day that we're alive, is we have to eat something. And this gentleman owns something called BKW Farms. Brian, I genuinely appreciate you taking the time to physically come in here and meet with us today. Thank you and welcome.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Well, and I've known Brian since he was born.
Yeah.
So his father and I went to school all the way from first through college graduation together. So we're long connection.
Well, and since I'm five years older than you, I feel like I'm the relic in the group. So I don't know what to say about that. So Brian, tell us about yourself. How did you get, obviously the way you got involved in BKW Farms is you were born.
Yes.
Okay, and tell us about it from after then.
Sure. So, a lot of people always ask me, did you always want to work on the farm? Why did you want to work on the farm? And I don't think I really had a choice. What's kind of sad is, family businesses, and Russell, I'm sure you can relate to it. Getting the children involved when it's a multi-generational business is really tough. And, I think I have 40 some odd cousins in my generation, and I'm the only one involved in the farm.
Wow.
And I'm the second youngest out of all those. So
is that right?
Yeah,
you're the second.
I'm the second youngest. So
wow.
I think if it wasn't for me, there wasn't going to be anyone. So I just kind of naturally fell into it. I grew up, playing and working on the farm, and I thought I might want to do something else in high school, but it's hard for me to move away because that's basically where I grew up.
Right.
No.
Well, I can relate,
Yeah.
but then my sons aren't involved.
Yeah.
So we're clinging on to hope for Reagan.
I think you grow up, in the environment you were in, and you look at your mom and dad, and you're thinking, they're working really hard. I don't know if I really want that.
Yeah. It is tough, especially when the family dynamic is involved, because obviously you can never do anything right, and they're always expecting the world from you. So that's a different dynamic that plays into trying to run a business.
And I have to think there's a portion of the way you do it now is probably unnecessarily different from the way they did it.
Yes.
And since you're not doing it their way, it's probably wrong.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
That's very accurate.
Okay.
So 7 siblings in your father's generation?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
And is he the only one?
Yeah. So my father is the only one still involved. I think only half of those siblings had anything to do with the farm. and they've either passed away or just stopped working and retired. So yeah, he's the last one in that generation.
Wow.
And do you? I mean, I'll give you an example. I was saying something about our family the other day in a meeting, and my brother goes, "No kidding."
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Some people care about that family history. Some people don't. I love it. Do you know your family's history? I mean, I knew your grandfather.
Yeah.
And your grandmother.
Yeah. I mean, I know the family history on how the farm started and got everything done, but other family members placing an importance on it, I'd say everyone in my generation, they really don't care. I mean, they grew up knowing about the farm is just kind of a place to go out and play, but other than that, they have no interest in the farm at all.
And can you the farm, one of your several farms was where the homes are across the street here,
Correct.
Saguaro Bloom.
Yeah.
Was that the family's first farm or?
No, so I guess I can go over the family history.
Yeah, we'd love it.
So my great grandfather actually immigrated over from China in the late 1800s, and he came over to work on the railroads as they were coming through New Mexico into Arizona and eventually into California and the country of Mexico. And then he decided to actually settle down in downtown Tucson and open up a grocery store. So that would have been in the 1920s. And so he brought the rest of his family over from China, which would have included my grandfather, to basically live and work in the grocery store. Great Depression was happening during that time, so they operated a lot on credit, basically giving groceries to the local Tucsonans, a lot of the Native American tribes as well, because that's just kind of how things were back then. No one had any money to really buy anything. So my grandfather was actually delivering groceries down to the Native American tribes south of Tucson, and that's kind of how he got interested in farming, because that's what they were mainly doing. So he saved up enough money and bought some land up in Red Rock in about, I think, like 1935, because he wanted to try farming himself, even though he had zero background in it, and he just saw how other people did it. So he actually put in his first crop in 1939. So it took him a few years to actually, it's just pure virgin desert, so to clear the land, develop a well out there.
Big job.
Yes, yes. So, back then the main crops grown were corn, vegetables, grains, that kind of thing. And so that's kind of what he started with. In 1941, he wanted to try something different called cotton, and which was never grown in this area. It was grown in California, so he wanted to give it a try. Generally, you plant cotton in about March, April time. He didn't know what he was doing. He got everything in late, so he didn't actually end up planting the crop until June. Generally, you harvest cotton in about October, November time. Come December 7th in 1941, Pearl Harbor happened, and he was one of the only farmers with cotton still left in the ground just by sheer luck. And the price
I've
of
never
cotton,
heard this one. That's great.
And so, basically, the price of cotton went from about 8 cents to over $1 overnight because it's declared a wartime commodity.
Wow.
So, he really lucked out on that crop, thinking, I messed up. I'm not going to be able to farm anymore after this. So he actually used that money to reinvest into the farm. And one thing that he loved doing was buying land sight unseen, as long as it's a good deal. So we ended up farming in Marana, Red Rock area, up into Eloy, Casa Grande area, over into Wilcox, and also into California. I think the height of our farm in the 1970s was like about 25,000 acres. And that's just a lot for a family to do.
Yeah.
A lot of mismanagement, everything's done late, everyone's running around with their head cut off. So we actually filed for bankruptcy in the early 1990s. And so we reconsolidated everything into the Marana area, and that's kind of where we've been ever since.
And your uncle, Ralph,
Yes.
he did some experimental stuff too.
Yeah.
Did he? He had fish and
Yeah. I mean,
palm trees.
ever since I've been involved in the farm. I guess even when I was little, we love to do crazy new ideas. Most of it doesn't pan out, but it's always interesting. Like Russell, you said, we grew tilapia for a couple of years. That never panned out. We've definitely done a lot of unique crops to the area. We've done lettuce, we've done broccoli, we've done chilies, we've done watermelon, it's one of those, we grow it for a year or two and a market never developed, so we just, gave up on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm shocked at how well you know your family's history.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that really is, it's remarkable. I mean, you did cotton farming in California, and
Yeah.
it's my understanding California is the #1 cotton supplier to the world.
I'm not too sure about the #1, but I
Okay.
know they are a huge cotton manufacturer. Arizona is still a huge cotton state.
Yes, exactly.
And it's mainly due to the weather in both of our areas. Cotton loves high heat areas, and since we don't have a lot of rain, we don't have to put up with a lot of bug pressure. So, cotton was grown, in the southern states, so like Louisiana, Alabama, those kinds of things.
Okay.
And, cotton is still grown in those areas, but they do have to combat a lot of bug pressure because it's more humid and they definitely get more moisture.
And my dad used to talk about our cotton was called Pima cotton. And
Yeah.
is that correct? And
Yeah,
it's
so-
long staple.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
Pima cotton is a long staple cotton variety, and I don't know the exact history behind it, but I know there isn't a tie between the word Pima and Pima County. It's just that's just kind of how it was developed and kind of people recognized it. But yeah, Pima cotton is grown mainly up in the Casa Grande area. Probably not so much anymore because farming's kind of going in the dumps up there. But you need a little bit longer season for the long staple cotton just so you can develop the plant over a longer period of time.
Well, you have to know a lot of little tiny details that
Yeah.
may seem insignificant to be a successful farmer. I know that.
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot of trial and error.
I'm sure.
I have a farmer friend who calls cotton the poverty crop. He
Oh, really?
says it's so hard to make a living in cotton.
Yeah,
Is that true?
It definitely does have its ups and downs. I'd say almost every crop has its ups and downs. The kind of more traditional way that larger farmers operate is they want to try to grow on a contract. So, someone kind of pre-buys the crop before you even plant it. So that's more of an assurance going into the future that at least you have a buyer, but you're stuck at the price that you pre-sold the crop for. So you kind of hope for a better yield so that once you met your obligations, you have some, left over that you can just sell on the open market.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a not a futures market, but it's achieving sort of the same thing.
Yeah, basically.
Just in a direct contract mode.
Yes.
And your dad once told me that lettuce loses money 6 out of 7 years,
Yeah.
but makes a lot of money on that other year.
Yeah, and that's
Is that
kind of
true?
That's kind of how our situation was. I mean, we grew it for I think almost 10 years, and we lost money in those 9 years. But that last year, there was a weather disaster in other lettuce producing places, so they weren't able to harvest, and they scour the country for whoever has lettuce. So, and my dad told me there are some years that the lettuce prices were so bad that didn't even pay to harvest it, so you just let it rot out in the field and just disc it back under.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, I've witnessed that.
Yeah.
We used to watch them. It was where Continental Ranch is now. It was those Antle Farms. And a few years, and he was the lettuce king of California or whatever he was called.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd watch him just get right back in.
Yeah.
We'd see it happen.
Yeah, produce is definitely very sensitive because you only have a certain window to harvest it, and if you miss that window, I mean, there's nothing you can do with that crop.
Now, what do you grow now, primarily, if I may ask?
Yeah. So after bankruptcy, we actually got totally out of farming, and we wanted to kind of diversify our operation and do something different than we've ever done before. So we actually kind of split up what farmland we had left. We actually leased out 100% of our farmland to farmers in the area, but we wanted to basically kind of be the land manager part. And so we wanted to take care of the administrative side and the overhead side. So we would enter into the long-term water contracts, develop the water rights on the land, take care of any lease issues with the state of Arizona, kind of do all the paperwork shuffling. So it allows the farmer to just, solely focus on farming, and we would take care of all the other headaches associated with it. And it is actually a pretty good partnership with the farmers that we were partnering with, because they focus on the crop, they had better yields, they were able to do stuff on time instead of trying to do the whole shebang. But I tell people once a farmer, always a farmer.
Sure.
So we actually got back into farming in 2013, and we wanted to do something totally different than we've ever done in the past with our traditional farming. So we wanted to do something organic, but we didn't know what kind of organic we wanted to do. We definitely wanted to stay away from produce or anything fresh because basically that harvest window and their storage window, it's so tight. So we looked into organic grains. So we actually first partnered up with Native Seed Search. They're an organization here in Tucson, and they preserve heritage varieties of seed. So the crop that we kind of first started with was called white Sonora wheat. And they just happen to have about 2,000 pounds of it that they've been, growing and developing over the past few decades. It's kind of like a soft white wheat. It was grown here in this area probably back in like the 1800s, and it kind of got pushed out in the early 1900s by other more modern wheat varieties. I guess the whole story behind it is Father Kino brought it over with him from Spain when he came to settle the area.
Okay.
So it has
which would have been 16.
Yeah, 1600s. Yeah. So it has some strong roots, especially in the Native American populations, because that's the main wheat that they grew. So we wanted to grow something organic. We chose the grains, but we also wanted to try to develop the markets locally. We didn't want to try to grow on a contract. We didn't want to have a third party, deal with all that. So the whole idea was we're going to grow it, harvest it, process it, and sell it and deliver it ourselves. So we wanted to do basically from the very start of the plant to the very end consumer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get your hand in it the entire way.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I've farm to table, so to speak.
Yeah.
But we got to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Dude and Guest Ranches offer an all-inclusive vacation experience like no other. The Dude Ranchers Association was formed in 1926 to preserve and share this special way of life. When you vacation at a DRA member ranch, you can rest assured you're getting a quality vacation. Member ranches endure a rigorous inspection and approval process that ensures guests are treated to a genuine Western hospitality experience combined with the lodging industry's highest standards. Horseback riding, hiking, fishing, swimming, zip lining, whitewater rafting, rodeos, cattle drives, and even Western dancing and fine dining await you on your discovery on your next Dude Ranch vacation. On a Dude Ranch, there are activities for anybody at any age. To learn more, visit duderanch.org or call 307-587-2339. Remember, duderanch.org or 307-587-2339. And we're back with Brian. Okay, Brian, something that you said in the first segment, you used the word heritage wheat. What do you mean by heritage?
So heritage is basically kind of the characteristic of the wheat. It hasn't been hybridized. It hasn't been bred with other wheat varieties, which is more the more modern stuff that is grown now. I mean, you're trying to hybridize the varieties so, it has more yield, it's more drought tolerant, it's more bug tolerant. But the heritage varieties doesn't have any of those, I guess, characteristics bred into it. And there's also even something called ancient varieties of wheat, which go all the way back to like Egypt era. And those are still around as well. And we've actually grown a couple of those too.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So is it true? Someone told me, I think my sister-in-law, that she had read that these, and we can talk about GMOs too, but these selectively bred, these grains that we've worked to adapt, that's why the gluten situation is so much more, because they bred more gluten into them. Is that a true story?
I would say yes. So gluten is essentially a protein in the wheat. And I think wheat's been bred over numerous of years to have a high protein content. And so, the more protein, the more gluten is in the wheat. And I think it's just kind of catching up with our genetics and everyone that, we're having a lot more gluten in our wheat than we ever had in the past. So people that are sensitive to it are, it's really affecting them now. What we've heard is people that have used, the heritage varieties of grains, they're easier to, I guess, digest, or it's easier on their system, even though they have a gluten sensitivity. And so, they try to gravitate towards that more because it doesn't have as high of a protein level as the more modern varieties.
Interesting. Okay. Now you talk about your farm being that you work hard towards sustainable agriculture. What does sustainable agriculture mean?
Yeah, that's always something that everyone always is interested in. And I guess when you kind of come down to it, sustainability has three parts to it. There's the economic part. It has to be economically viable for your operation. There's the environmental part. You can't be, rape and pillaging the land just to kind of get a crop on there. You want to make sure that you can do it over and over and, still keep the environment happy. Your soils are definitely a big part of that. Mm-hmm. And then there's kind of the social component of it. You have to want to do something that's passionate. You want to do something that, enhances your life. You want to do something that is, you can actually do year over year. You're just not kind of killing yourself on it. So, hopefully we're working towards sustainable, farming practices. We definitely try to evolve it year after year to make sure it's more sustainable. And I think we're doing a good job.
Well, you're still there. I mean, it's only been almost 90 years, so I would assume. You're doing
we're doing
pretty
something.
good job.
Yes.
Yeah, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
I think you're proud of what you do in the conversations we've had. I think you're very proud of what it is you do.
Yeah. Our farm's definitely come a long way since, I guess the pre-1990 era to what it is today. And, I'm more happy that the farm's trying to, I guess, interact more with the public, be more community minded instead of, just kind of hiding in our little hole out in the middle of the desert and just doing what we do and not let anyone, kind of take part of that or even educate them in that. One of the things that we definitely tried to push is kind of community events, kind of getting us out there, not so much to say, hey, buy our product, but it's more of like the educational component. Let people know about farming, let them know that there's even farming in this area.
Yeah.
Because when I talk to someone, they say, "Oh, I didn't even know there's farming in Arizona." Where do you start?
I get that.
Yeah, where do you start at that point? Because food just doesn't magically show up in grocery stores.
No.
It needs to be grown somewhere.
Yeah, and that is a big deal. You drive through the Central Valley of California, and it's sometimes 200 miles of nothing but crops that are people growing it. People are going to eat that, and they have to have that. And they don't just feed that area; they feed the entire world, as do you, I'm sure. And I know you feed a lot of local businesses as well. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, we definitely try to be more community minded. We definitely try to target the Tucson and Phoenix area. One of our main customers that was kind of supporting us in the very beginning was Barrio Breads, Don Guerra. He's definitely a big proponent of trying to source basically the wheats that he used locally and definitely trying to source heritage varieties and not just relying on the more modern varieties of grains. So he's been a big support of that. Ever since then, we've partnered with breweries over the years. We've partnered with other restaurants over the years who continually buy product from us week after week. And, it's a big plus for them too, because they can tell their customers, we're buying from the farm that's, 20, 30 miles down the road instead of just buying it from a distributor and they don't know where it came from.
Right.
Well, and it's working. I see BKW Farms everywhere. I mean, from little gift stores to at breweries. Are you selling to breweries right now?
Not so much. When we very first started, breweries were definitely one of our biggest customers because they were excited to try to use locally grown grains, especially the heritage varieties, to flavor the different kinds of beers that they make. But not so much, I guess, after COVID, because I think they're really price sensitive on their inputs for the breweries. So I'd say probably like 80 to 90% of our sales is to restaurants and direct to consumers. right now.
And the restaurants are so what are they buying? Are they buying ground wheat?
Yeah, so most of the time they're buying the flour from us. So
Yeah.
we do have our own flour mill facility that we installed on the property.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I had no idea.
yeah, that was one of the biggest things to help push our sales forward, because when we first grew it, we harvest it, we have it at the farm. We said, okay, where is everyone? Why aren't people lining up to buy this stuff? We found out, a raw grain seed or raw grain wheat berry, people don't know how to use it. The only people that were able to use it were breweries, so those were our first customers. But once we added in milling facilities, we're actually able to mill it all in the flour, and it's much more usable for bakeries and restaurants.
Yeah, we definitely see it around. So you're just growing the wheat right now, no barley?
Just we're mainly focusing on wheat, and then we actually started growing mushrooms at our farm, I think back in 2017, 2018. And kind of the reason we got into that is we actually used the wheat byproduct, basically the wheat stalks, as the growing media to grow mushrooms. So we thought that was a good use of the full wheat crop.
So how do you grow mushrooms?
Yeah, we don't have a cave, if that's what you're wondering.
Exactly.
We actually first started out with shipping containers. So we put all the environmental controls on the shipping container. We were trying to hit 70 degrees all the time and about 80% humidity. And that's actually like one of the perfect temperatures and humidity levels to grow mushrooms. And mushrooms are kind of opposite of plants. They actually give off CO2 instead of taking in CO2. So fresh air exchange is another important aspect, because if you have too much CO2 in there, they want to have a longer stem and a smaller cap on the mushroom. We actually found out that mushrooms grow better in light than in actual total darkness, which kind of blows everyone's mind, because you think that they just grow in a dark cave and there's a pretty mushroom there. So we experimented with like LED lights, that kind of thing, but just regular fluorescent lights is good enough to keep the mushroom production up.
Well, and I would think in an environment like Tucson, being able to maintain 70 degrees with high humidity is probably pretty easy.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly everything we don't have.
Yes. We were definitely struggling for the first couple of years. We kind of dialed in our system. Like I said, trial and error. That should be like in the middle of our farm name is trial and error. But lots of error, but we learned from our mistakes, and we've actually since moved it into grow tents that we have inside our environmentally controlled building, basically a garage or a big storage building that has the AC on it. So then once you have the tent in there, you're only worrying about the humidity level at that point.
And so to get that 70 degrees in the summer, you're using just conventional air conditioners?
Correct, yeah. We've actually converted almost our entire farm over to solar over the past few years, so that definitely does help.
I'll bet that does.
Yeah.
I bet that does. It's a great application for solar too.
Yeah.
And solar with storage or just stuff that goes in and out?
Yeah, no storage.
No storage.
Yeah.
And where do your mushrooms end up?
Again, restaurants, a lot of local direct to home. We actually sell, we'll even deliver it to someone's house if they want to buy it from us. We've actually started to develop mushroom supplement powders.
Oh, so that's a big thing now.
We're trying to get into that game, and we're slowly developing that, and hopefully in the next few months we'll be able to roll it out and people can buy those. And they know that if they're buying it from us, it's grown here and processed here, and it's all local.
But those supplement things, those aren't just mushrooms. Those are specific varieties.
Correct. Yeah. Some of the varieties that we were focusing on for the supplement powders is lion's mane and reishi.
Yeah. I know nothing except my wife was talking about I saw lion's mane somewhere. I said, what that? Oh, that's the hottest thing.
Yeah.
She's giving mushroom powder to the dog.
Oh, really? Yeah. I've heard that for a few people that they give it to their dogs.
And she's sure it's made her much better off.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
Yeah. So,
really?
Yeah. No.
Don't tell my wife.
I'm embarrassed, but I'm saying it out loud and I'm public.
Yeah.
Okay. Something you talked about earlier, and I want to circle back because when you move, I moved here from California, and all my friends ask me about is, there's no water in Arizona. How do you live?
Yeah.
Obviously, you run a farm. You've kind of figured the water game out.
Yes.
How have you done this?
Being definitely involved is key to that aspect. You don't want to try to, kind of corner yourself off and say this water's mine and not anyone else's, and you're gonna, lawyer up and fight that till the day you die. My grandfather tried doing that, and it doesn't end up good in the end.
No.
So we still have about 4,500 acres of irrigated farmland. Majority of it's still leased out to other farmers. This Central Arizona project, which is a canal that comes off the Colorado River, snakes down from the northwest part of Arizona into Phoenix and ends in Tucson. We actually draw off of that to irrigate our crops. We stopped pumping groundwater in the late 1990s and converted 100% over to CAP water.
Really? I didn't know that.
So we haven't pumped any groundwater since then.
Oh, okay.
There's definitely talks about shortages coming up in the future, and how is that going to affect our farm. One thing that we've actually done is partnership with local municipalities, so such as Marana Water, Tucson Water, and Metro Water, and we actually use their allocation off the Central Arizona project to irrigate our crops. And so it's kind of like a water exchange. So we take that 1 unit of water from the CAP, irrigate our crops with it, and in turn they drain that 1 unit of water in the ground we did not pump to use at some later date.
Okay.
So it's basically storing and using more water that's available here in this area, and it's kind of saving your water resources for the future.
And you and your father have been very involved in water boards and water regulation and water negotiations, and you kind of were cutting edge on this exchange stuff.
Yeah. We were one of the first ones in the area to do it. I'm sure my grandfather's rolling in his grave because he absolutely hated dealing with any kind of city because, they believed all the water was theirs and there wasn't going to be any for farmers. But, we figured that trying to work with them and partner with them was a lot easier avenue than trying to fight them the whole way.
Because they'll win.
Yeah.
Even though they're going to go hungry, they will win.
So that begs my next question. How politically active do you have to be to do what it is you do?
We try not to take sides.
Of course not.
I think, Arizona is definitely united in water policy and understanding what's best for the state. It's kind of hard to imagine that everyone is on the same page, but it is slowly happening, especially in the big metropolitan areas, because they understand the water issues, they understand what it takes to pump groundwater, store groundwater, deliver groundwater, and trying to incorporate the renewable resources into that. So we try to stay as active as we can in anything that has to do with water, not only on farming, but on the municipal side too, so that we have all the information to try to help each other.
Right, and I know, like you said, you don't want to take sides,
Yeah.
but you've got to be at least aware, if nothing else.
Yes.
Of what's going on, because it does ultimately impact what it is you're doing.
Correct.
At some level. At some level. Okay, explain the difference between organic and, I want to use the term, and I don't think it's accurate, inorganic farming.
Yeah. So I guess when you talk about what is organic farming, the best way to kind of get into that is use what the USDA definition is.
Okay.
And our farm, when we first did the grain project, we were actually USDA organic certified. And what that really means is it's a lot of paperwork pushing. Yes, there are certain methods and things you need to follow, so you can't use any kind of prohibited substances on it. Basically, any kind of like synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, or pesticides, none of that can be applied. You can't use any kind of GMO crop or GMO seed, and you need to basically show them every step of the way, every process that you've done, to show that there isn't kind of any contamination from these prohibited substances.
Okay.
And it does play into the role of sustainability, so you're trying to utilize what resources are already on the land and then help try to preserve those resources going into the
Probably
future.
better on the land anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
it definitely helps to not overuse any kind of synthetic fertilizers year after year.
So what do you use if you can't use synthetic fertilizer?
Manures are a good source. I think we've even taken a few loads of manure from the white
Oh,
stallion.
yeah.
Cow manures, horse manures. If you really want to get fancy, they definitely have organic certified bat guano that you can put on there, but it kind of gets expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's supposed to be the gold standard,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's weird.
I didn't know we produced much in the way of manure here.
So,
Yeah.
GMOs are controversial. What do you have an opinion, or just educate us?
Yeah. I think a lot of people have a negative view on GMO just in the name itself because it's genetically modified organic. What it really comes down to, if we did not have these GMO varieties of certain crops, we'd be going hungry a lot faster. GMO is meant to have a lot higher yields with a lot lower inputs in it. Corn is probably one of the biggest examples of GMO. Cotton is another big example of GMO. If it wasn't for GMO cotton would be almost eradicated from the U.S. because of a certain insect called the pink bollworm was really devastating a lot of cotton crops here in the United States. When we were growing it before GMO was developed for cotton, we were probably spraying every 3 to 4 days just to control the pink bollworm in the crop. I think mid 2000s, it's actually been declared totally eradicated in the U.S. for that pink bollworm, just because of the genetics that has been bred into the cotton.
Interesting.
And so those cotton varieties just resist it.
Correct. Yeah. So I guess I don't know the exact science behind it, but if the worm bit the cotton plant, there was a certain genetic strand in the cotton that it would get into the worm system, and then it would disrupt it, and they couldn't breed after that.
I read once that conventional wheat, we're not talking about your Sonoran white, but is one of the best crops to plant around the world because it thrives in a variety of climates and soil types, etc. Is wheat a good crop for the soil, or is it something you have to rotate stuff?
Any kind of monocrop is not good for the soil, so rotation is definitely very helpful. Not to say you can't plant wheat year after year, but you need to do wheat crop and then some kind of other crop, and then you can follow with wheat, but you just don't go wheat. Wheat is definitely a worldwide consumed crop. Everyone likes breads, everyone likes noodles, everyone likes pastas, so it is definitely grown worldwide. And there's multiple varieties that are grown all over the place, and I think that's kind of one of the more hot crops that definitely has a lot of research going into it, just to make sure that the yields can stay consistent and even increase to keep on feeding a growing population.
And what's a good crop or a couple of good crops to rotate with?
So like in this area, there are farmers that grow wheat. Usually they'll do like a cotton in between, or they'll do alfalfa in between. As far as like cover crops, you're definitely looking for like a legume, something that can do like a nitrogen fixing in the soil. So like peas or cowpeas, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Well, we've gone way over.
We
This
have.
is one of the best.
This is wonderful. Oh my goodness.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you so much for coming in.
You're
This is-
welcome.
And they can come get. You're talking about selling in restaurants. I've seen it in stores. How can they get your mushrooms and your coming mushroom powders and your wheat and all these things?
Yeah, so everything's easily ordered online, bkwazgrown.com, and it should be pretty self-explanatory.
bkwazgrown.com.
Yes.
bkwazgrown.com.
You don't have a physical store that sells your
we
product.
actually do offer. You can come to the farm and pick up your stuff if you
Really?
want to. Yes.
Okay. Really? Seriously? Okay.
Yeah, but we do offer local delivery as well.
Okay, but I'm somebody. It's really difficult for me to have a steak without mushrooms on.
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I'm sorry. It's just it's very difficult. So I will be doing that.
Okay.
I will commit that I'm going to be doing that.
Soon
That sounds
you'll be
fantastic.
powdering it with
Oh,
those
yeah.
lines.
I don't know about that.
So, how about the restaurants? How are they getting your products? are they coming out and getting them?
No, like I said, we offer delivery, so we actually do our own delivery as well. So we like to say that the person delivering your product is the one that's actually.
You've had to get into everything.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Super.
It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Great to see you. I haven't seen you enough. Good to see you.
You know, a lot of folks don't understand when you go to the store, you had to do something to have all those products there, and they also don't understand how much work and research it goes into growing all these products and the variety and the diversity of these products. And I think today's podcast was a really great demonstration of that.
Well, I took two things away. It's kind of interesting. I think, Brian's generation is one that's more socially and community conscious and oriented, and clearly they're doing that. I mean, I see it all over town, and so they're doing that well. But I think the broader thing that he said it several times, and he was so candid about their history and what had worked and what hadn't. But their family, the Wong family, just a really important part of the Avra Valley in southern Arizona, they have adapted. And, if you stand still, you're going to get run over. And they clearly are looking for new ways to take their company forward, like taking wheat stalks and turning them into mushrooms and doing it in storage containers and learning all the way. And so their family's in good hands because they're continuing to adapt and adjust. And mushroom powder, it's the thing right now. So they're right in the middle of the bullseye with that one.
Right in the middle of the bullseye. That's where we all really want to be. Thank you. My name is Stan. I'm the radio man for the Cowboy Spirit Radio Network, and I'm grateful when my colleagues like Stephen and Russell and Brian put together a great program that's not only informative, it's got a fun element, and it is, as I say, you learn things here that'll be good for you. Good for you in life, business, and perhaps a way to serve others. That's what it means to be a cowboy, and that's what Cowboy Up Podcast is all about. By the way, we come your way from Cowboy Country, the White Stallion Ranch, classic guest and dude ranch right in Tucson, Arizona. And of course, this is a great time to start making plans for the Southwest. We have just gotten through a book festival and spring training, and now it's time for those of you who want a little bit of a warmer experience. Going forward, you're ready for some adventure, some cowboy adventure. So please reach out to us at whitestallion.com. whitestallion.com. And we'll find a place for you. But if you're looking for, as the Dude Ranch Association says, something in the northern climes, the mountain areas, we just have contacts, friends, and relationships through the True Ranch Connection. We can also find a place for you up in the grasslands of the north, and you can enjoy that too. That's what we are here for. We'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us at the Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. That's the Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. First of all, we'd welcome you if you'd like to be a sponsor on the program. We are always ready to give you a shout out. We also would love to hear from you if perhaps you would like to audition to be a guest on our program because you've got a story to tell, or perhaps you know somebody who does. We're trying to make sure that everybody who has a song and a story and wisdom and insight that can help us live better, kind of keep the Western cowboy tradition alive, which will be really good for all of Western civilization too. So thank you very much. All the best and blessings to you. Ride tall, ride safe, do good work, and perhaps pronounce a little cowboy blessing on us all from time to time. Bye for now.